It's your big break on TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez and you are in a new episode of The Final Cut. Today I'm going to be going over A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Yes, it's a great film and I'm just going to give my brief synopsis of the film, the cast and crew, and some history behind it and my ultimate thoughts and review of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 stars Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, Heather Langenkamp returns as Nancy Thompson, Craig Wasson as Neil Gordon, Patricia Arquette is introduced as Kristen Parker, Ken Sagos is Kincaid, Rodney Eastman's Joey, Jennifer Rubin's Taryn, Bradley Gregg as Philip, Ira Hayden as Will, Laurence Fishburne makes an appearance as Max, and John Saxon reprises his role as Don Thompson, Nancy's father. It is directed by Chuck Russell, written by Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell, based upon the story written by Bruce Wagner and Wes Craven. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors picks up where the original Nightmare left off. Nancy Thompson has grown up and become a psychiatrist, specializing in dream therapy. She meets a group of children at a local hospital facing Freddy Krueger, the same demon she once encountered in her sleep years before. One of the children is named Kristen, who has the power to draw other people into her dreams. Working with a male doctor assigned to the case, Nancy helps the kids realize their special abilities within the dream world. Freddy Krueger captures one of the kids, and Nancy, along with the rest of the group, must attempt a rescue mission into Freddy Krueger's domain, in hopes of putting his spirit to rest once and for all. It's a lot better than A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, and a lot of that was because Freddy's Revenge made a great amount of money, but it had some lukewarm reviews and it was pretty divided. So they felt like they needed to kind of get back to basics, and they got in touch with Wes Craven to create a story. Wes Craven pretty much decided to take it to the next level, decided to have them children fight back in their dreams and use dream powers, and really kind of go more into the dream world. And it was much darker. Wes Craven wrote it with Bruce Wagner, and it was much darker. So then they got a duo, Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell, to do the screenplay and adapt that. The only thing they kept was, spoiler warning here, Nancy's death. And the rest they changed, and they added a bit more humor into the mix of Freddy Krueger, and then kind of brought back the dream element of the first film. Now, Chuck Russell ended up later on directing The Mask, starring Jim Carrey, the film Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and of course Frank Darabont went to go direct Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and The Majestic, as well as the pilot to The Walking Dead. And you can tell that Wes Craven has much more involvement in this picture. It is a more sophisticated film, and it feels like it actually is a sequel. One thing this film does is that it moves the plot further along while adding to the mythology. And then what it does is it brings back older characters and balances them very well with new characters that we care about just the same. And that is a very hard thing to do, and I feel like Dream Warriors does that in a very great way. Another thing that the film does is that it balances the humor and the horror elements really well, the darker and lighter tones, before it gets to full campiness with Freddy Krueger. This one, there's humor, but it's done with a purpose, and the one-liners are brilliant. They didn't overkill Freddy. It's done with a purpose, and it's more of in a way toying with people. And they also got very imaginative with this installment. There's a lot more to the dream sequences, and again, it's all in the dreams that go back to the roles of Freddy Krueger. And yeah, this is Patricia Arquette's first film. She does a great job as Kristen. there's a lot of themes in this. Themes of adults knowing more than the children and not listening to the children. The children always knowing the facts that the adults are unaware of. And also there's a lot of themes of mental hospitals that were going on at the time, and then suicide and drugs. And it's very layered in that regard. And it's really deep, but ultimately it's about a bond of a group of kids. And Laurence Fishburne has an early role in this. It's crazy seeing him so young. He was known as Larry Fishburne in this. And then, yeah, there's a doctor, the male doctor. He does a great job. He was in Brian De Palma's Body Double. And yes, he does look a bit like Bill Maher. It's kind of crazy. I thought it was Bill Maher when I first saw this. But I remember seeing Dream Warriors one day in 1999 on Sci-Fi Channel. And I saw it right after The Lost Boys. And I was scared. My brother-in-law showed me the original Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 6 years old. And I was scared to fall asleep. But Dream Warriors was an installment that made me stop being afraid of Freddy Krueger. That I was like, I could fight back in my dreams. And that's something cool, is that this film adds another layer. Now, is it scary like the first film? No, but it does have some great horror elements. And it's an all-around entertaining and well-paced film. Again, like the first, it adds it to the dreams, but there's more of a continuation. There's characters we care about. The execution is just all around A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm glad they got some of Wes Craven's involvement in this, because they really rectified the mistakes they made in Freddy's Revenge in the second installment. Robert Englund is, again, perfection as Freddy Krueger. And it's nice seeing Heather Langenkamp back as Nancy. Very few horror movies have the characters back, but in this one we actually get to see her character, and as well as her father played by John Saxon, where their characters have been the past couple of years. There's development, there's progression, but ultimately what makes this film so cool is the origin of Freddy Krueger. We finally get a backstory and the reason why he's in the dream realm, and it's just a great explanation. Basically his mother was a nun, and she got raped by 100 maniacs inside an insane asylum during a Christmas shift. And you don't know who his father is, but his father, he's pretty much the bastard child of 100 maniacs. And that is just so frightening and just so dark and grim and just screwed up on so many levels. Brings a perfect explanation. And then when the parents of Elm Street burned Freddy Krueger after he got not guilty on the trial, they burned him, buried his body in a junkyard, but they didn't give him a proper burial. And because they didn't give him a proper burial, he was able to go inside people's dreams. So they had to put holy water and a cross and basically give a proper burial to put his soul to rest, while Nancy and the rest of the Dream Warriors go fight Freddy Krueger to get one of their own back. And it's just a great finale. I mean, this could almost have been the finale to the entire Nightmare on Elm Street film series. But definitely for the Nancy Thompson arc, it's a good follow-up to number 1, and also kind of a good conclusion and backstory to Freddy Krueger. It adds more to the monster, and sometimes it's bad when you let people know too much about the monster, but they let you know just enough while keeping some other things mysterious. And that's what works about this film. The special effects are top-notch, all practical. I mean, that opening nightmare scene with Christian, with Patricia Arquette, roasted pig, a child, there's a skeleton. And originally they're going to do something much worse, but they didn't use it, so they just put a skeleton together. And yeah, the insane asylum stuff is crazy, and then Freddy actually twisting the dreams upon the character's weaknesses. You have a scene with a nurse. Joey, one of the kids, loves women, and she's like fully nude, and then just has this long tongue and then imprisons Joey. And then there's this other character who has puppets, and the puppet turns into Freddy Krueger, gets the guy's veins out and starts moving him like a marionette puppet, and then cuts his veins off, and it makes it look like he killed himself. Room full of mirrors. He is a wizard master. He's like, I don't believe in fairy tales. And then one of the girls wanted to become an actress. He uses a TV to kill her. And what the best line, goes by the TV, sees Zsa Zsa Gabor. Who gives a fuck what you think or whatever. It's like, it's your big break on TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch. And then kills her with the TV. Brilliant practical effects there, and it was actually going to be, it's your big break on TV, and then kill her. And then there was an alternate take, and Robert Englund ad-libbed, welcome to prime time, bitch. So, having trouble deciding between the two of them, Chuck Russell edited together to be like, it's your big break on TV, Jessica. Welcome to prime time, bitch. And then puts her in. Great stuff there. The whole effects with Freddy Krueger's body is very Jason and the Argonauts-like with stop-motion animation. And there's a lot of stop-motion animation stuff while it was still used before CGI. And that's part of the reason why the film stands up so well. The makeup was also improved. You're able to see Freddy's face fully. When he kills one of the Dream Warriors who's addicted to drugs, he basically gets these heroin needles out of his fingers and then stabs her. It was just really intense. It was very screwed up, and again, the humor wasn't to the point of being overtly campy or just cheesy to the point where it becomes a parody of himself. No, Freddy was still serious, but this was the start of him not being as menacing and scary like the first two installments, and this was kind of the start of the more funny, more mainstream parody version of Freddy Krueger you see in the later sequels. But I felt like Chuck Russell did a good job balancing the humor parts and the serious parts to where it was still scary, still serious, but funny in a messed up way with a purpose without being just campy for the hell of it. I thought all the actors did a great job, but you could tell they had a bond with one another. The actor who played Kincaid was great. Supposedly during the audition, it was raining and he was getting there late, and then they went behind on the audition, so he had to wait a bit, so he basically went in there just cussing up the place. He's just like, fuck you! And then the director's like, okay, you're hired. He's just like, just do something, and that's what he did, and then he really needed that type of anger for the character of Kincaid. You see that he's trying to explain to the doctors and everybody what's going on, and again, they don't listen. And that's one great thing about these Nightmare on Elm Street films, especially the really great ones, is that it's always about like adults with good intentions putting the children in harm's way. They always think that they know more than the children, and in fact, the children know more than the adults in the world. The adults don't listen to the children, and they don't take the time to just hear them out, and that's shown in these films. And there's a deeper message about society too, and again, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of issues about teen suicide, drugs, and then like mental hospitals. Are they really helping children, or is it more like prisons or asylums for these individuals that are just kind of ignored? And it's always crazy because the adults aren't evil. It's just they think that they're doing the right thing, but they don't know that they're not. They don't understand. And that's just really great that that's presented out in Dream Warriors. The score is good. Just everything in this film is well made, and it's a worthy sequel to Wes Craven's original Nightmare on Elm Street. Again, it not only follows up and progresses a story, but it also provides more to the mythology of Freddy Krueger, and then it brings back characters that we all know and love, but while yet balancing with new characters that are introduced that we love just the same. And that's great about it. It does all the things a sequel should do, and that's why it just works on all cylinders and all points. Another effect that was crazy was Christian bringing people in her dreams. The snake Freddy, and originally it was going to be like a pink color, and then they realized it kind of looked like a penis, like a giant penis, so they had to put blue, purple, and eventually like green goo on it. And it wasn't working right, so what they did is they filmed Patricia Arquette being eaten by it, and what they did is they pulled her, and when they pulled her, it did this, and then they basically filmed it in reverse, so even though they pulled her, in the film you see it like this, and it looks weird and like dreamlike, and it actually looks like he's trying to eat her, and then that whole moment, that whole part where Nancy comes in, and he gets stabbed, gets up, lets go of Christian, and then he looks at Heather Langenkamp's Nancy, and he's just like, you. That was just so brilliant. A sequel, and it adds more stakes because Nancy's already faced Freddy Krueger once. Nancy already faced Freddy Krueger one time, so to face him again is even more challenging because she has to go through that again, knowing what these kids are going through. Trying to put, she puts a drug to basically put her to sleep, dream medication where she can't dream, and she has to deal with that. And then you see the effects it had on her father, but also you get to see Freddy wanting revenge because she defeated him once, where he's never been defeated before, except for maybe when he was burned by the Elm Street parents. So like it really adds a lot more to the stakes of Dream Warriors. Who could forget Dawkins on the soundtrack? We're the Dream Warriors. Don't wanna dream no more. Maybe tonight you'll be gone. Dream Warriors. Such a great soundtrack. first, it was also included on the VHS, and it was the first music video to be included on a home video release, so that's kind of cool. Nancy dying was really intense. Again, I know it's spoilers, but Wes Craven had her die originally, and it was just crazy seeing her sacrifice herself and dying in Kristen's arms. But it also added another element to the series where, like, well, if Nancy can die, then anything can happen. Nobody is safe. And that added another level of dread should they have continued with more installments, at least for now, at the moment. And it ended up being the highest gross in Nightmare on Elm Street at the time. It was a massive success, and it was a very independent movie, but that film really made a lot of money. Afterwards, New Line went to their new logo you see in a lot of the 90s films, and Ninja Turtles, Mask, and Mortal Kombat, and Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, it was a really well-made film. The effects, all the sets were built. It was very imaginative, and you could really tell the influence Dream Warriors had on the later installments, for better or worse. The stuff that did work and did not work. And ultimately, I think what the sequels failed in is that you can't recreate this film. It's like lightning in a bottle, where you can't exactly replicate it the same way, and I think that's why the sequels failed. But this film is great all around, and it's a much better sequel than Freddy's Revenge. This feels like a true successor to Nightmare on Elm Street. And yeah, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 makes the final cut. I give it a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, and an A+. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors is probably one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. And it's a lot of fans' favorite. It's a fan favorite among many Nightmare on Elm Street fans. So yeah, definitely check it out. If you're a fan of the original, check out Dream Warriors. It is probably the best sequel. And it has Doc, and it has Into the Fire. It starts off with Patricia Arquette's first film. Laurence Fishburne's in it. Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon return. You have the guy who looks like Bill Maher, and the kids, all the actors do such a great job. And the Dungeons and Dragons, I'm the Wizard Master. You just feel for them. That it has a lot of heart. And it's nice seeing kids play their own age. It's like seeing the new Stranger Things show, and you see the kids here. They're actually characters you relate to. And I like that. You care about them in the end. And that's what's great about this film, and what's great about so many horror films, that other horror films, people just become expendable, and you just want the villain to kill them in violent ways. There's some gory stuff here. While it may not be as scary, it's just gory and imaginative. But you care about the characters, and there is a story to be told, both with these characters, Nancy and her father, and the backstory of Freddy Krueger. So definitely check out Dream Warriors. It is not to be missed for this Halloween. And it is probably one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street films. So yeah, check out Dream Warriors. Tune in next time where I'll review A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Ooh, sweet, fresh meat. That's it for this episode of The Final Cut. What were your favorite moments of A Nightmare on Elm Street? What's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street film? If you like this, feel free to comment and subscribe and check out more videos.